By the way, I dropped my third pair of glasses in the fire the other night, so
You only got two left.
no, this is my last one.
Now the Philistines gathered their armies for battle, and they were gathered at Sukkot, which belonged to Judah, and camped between Sukkot and Azekah in Ephes Damim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered and camped in the valley of Elah, and drew up in line of battle against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on the mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on the mountain on the other side, with a valley between them. So as we just read, the Philistines were parking between those two cities, Sukkot and Azekah. The Philistines were the people of the sea, and they had 5 cities on the Mediterranean Sea, and they came on the way towards Jerusalem. And that's where the battle happened. The Philistines were between Sukkot and Azekah on a place called Ephes Damim. Ephes Damim, we're not sure exactly, but we think it means on the low ground. And they were standing on one side of the hills, and the Israelites were standing on the other side of the hill. And up there, I can show you, but I need to take you at the sun for that. There is a city which is the most famous biblical sensation in the last 10 years. It's a city that's called She'araim, which means double gate. It's a city that goes back to the time of King David. And you remember that we said that people questioned the existence of King David?
Mm-hmm.
So here they found a city, a fortified city, from the times of King David, right on this hill. So the Israelites on one side, the Philistines on the other side, and that's where the battle between David and Goliath happened. And the river over here, this tiny river, is the river of Elah. The river comes from the east, going down from Jerusalem area, and goes all the way to the coastline. So this river, as often it used to be, the rivers were used as roads. People took the river or walked beside the river all the way up. So they were actually fighting on the way up to Jerusalem. Okay, maybe with your permission, one more thing. I'll just give you a break, it's okay? But basically, when the children of Israel came to the Promised Land, it was the 13th century BC, and that was a time of turbulence. The scholars and the archaeologists will tell you that around the year of 1277 BC, around this year, all the empires of the ancient world collapsed. All of them, one by one. In 30 years' time, all the nations, all the great empires collapsed. What caused to that? Probably not just one reason, but many reasons altogether. Droughts years for decades, earthquakes, volcano mountain erupt, starvation, many reasons that eventually caused the Hittite Empire to collapse, the Cyprus Empire collapse, the Egyptians that ruled this land for 500 years had to redraw, and what's happened is that new nations invaded from the north into the Middle East, and that's what you read about in the Bible. The Bible calls them the nations of the sea. The Philistines were one of them. So those new guys came, pushed from their area, came over here, and they were the people of war, and they brought a new invention with them, which was iron swords. And they were fighting against the Egyptians. We have the evidence for that. And the Egyptians made a deal with them. Yes, Egypt withdrew, the Philistines came, they fought against Egypt, and Egypt cut the deal. You know what was the deal? We're going to give you the land of Canaan. You're going to replace the Egyptian empire with one condition: you're going to be the front shield of Egypt. So this is what you read, yes, at the Bible. Yes, that's the whole history of the Old Testament in a nutshell. Because now you have the Israelites that came from the desert. You have the Canaanites that left here unprotected because the Egyptian withdrew. And the new guys, the Philistines, who just arrived. One more time, the Philistines just arrived. They see themselves as the new rulers of the land. They are the high culture. Those Israelites up there on the mountains, those are the barbarians. And the Canaanites here, and that's what you read about. Philistines, Canaanites, Israelites, keep fighting between them. Okay? And we read about Samson. Samson was active around this area. But in the day of Samson, the Israelites paid tribute to the Philistines. And Samson found a woman from the Philistines so he can get revenge. That was the excuse to Samson revenge on them. So all the stories about Samson happen around this area. Okay? And later in the time of King David and Goliath was right over here, and to be continued.
So obviously we can't be here without
swallowing some...
yeah. Is everyone just suffering with the bugs, or are you okay if we read a little more?
Okay, we'll stay for it.
This is fantastic. I mean, this is
Where are we at?
1 Samuel 17.
Okay, thank you.
So verse 4, and there came out from the camp of the Philistines a champion named, you say Goliath?
Whatever.
No, but in
Goliath, yeah.
Goliath. Doesn't sound
Goliath.
Goliath.
No, just kidding. Goliath of Gath, whose height was, somewhere around 10 feet or so. So it's not just like some tall, lanky, 10-foot, think of a guy proportionately. A stocky 10-foot guy. That's unfathomable. He had a helmet of bronze, and he was armed with a coat of armor. It was an incredibly heavy coat. He had a bronze armor on his legs, a javelin of bronze slung between his shoulders. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam. So just this incredibly intimidating guy. There's so much, but obviously we know the whole story where everything unfolds. Verse 24, all the men of Israel, when they saw the man Goliath, they fled, and they were much afraid. And then the men of Israel said, have you seen this man who's come up? Surely he's come up to defy Israel. And then they go on, well, the king will really pay someone quite a bit, if they kill him. And I think it says even offer him his daughter, this type of thing. And I just love this. The spirit of David. Like, this is just one of the most iconic stories. And I love it when reality is better than fiction. And David goes like, look, his confidence, this is interesting. His confidence is not in himself, it's in the Lord, but he actually kind of is in confidence in himself as well. Almost to the point of being cocky. He's like, look, I killed I was shepherding the sheep, I killed the bear, I killed the lion. Like, I have a track record of success with the Lord. And everyone else is afraid. Like, you think about it, all of the armies of Israel, everyone's standing on the hill looking down at this giant, and they're just afraid. And this little cocky little David, he says, your servant used to keep the sheep of his father. When there came a lion or a bear and took a lamb, I went after him. And I struck him and I delivered it out of his mouth. I'm sure the lamb was freaked out. I caught him by his beard and I struck him. And if he arose against me, I caught him by his beard. I struck him and I killed him. Your servant has struck down both lions and bears. And this uncircumcised Philistine, like, forget how big he is. Like, he doesn't have God. He doesn't have the Lord at his side. That's where the cockiness ultimately lies. It's his confidence in the Lord and his desire to defend the name and the reputation of God, as Israel is are representatives of the Lord. He says, this uncircumcised Philistine is going to be just like one of them. I killed them, I'm going to kill him, because he has defied the armies of the living God. And David said, the Lord who has... So again, this there's a degree where it comes across as cocky, but his confidence in the Lord. He says, the Lord who has delivered me. Whoops. The Lord who has delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of the Philistines. So you know the whole story. He's like, what am I, a dog, that you come at me with sticks and rocks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. The Philistine said to David, come at me, bro, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. And David's like, yeah? You come at me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come at you in the name of the Lord of hosts, of armies, the God of the armies of Israel, that you have had the gall to... Notice that? Goliath? You have the gall, anyway. Whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down, and I'm going to cut your head off, punk. I mean, these are guys talking trash, but it's like, it's fantastic. I'm going to cut your head off. And I'm going to give the bodies of all of the armies, not just you, but all of the armies of the Philistines to the birds. So like, you're saying you're going to feed me to the birds? I'm going to feed all of the armies, the bodies of all the armies, to the birds of the air, the wild beasts. Why? So that they may know that there's a God in Israel. And of course, we know the whole story. He picks up a sling, sticks it in his forehead, picks up this massive sword. And I remember this story, this thing when I was a kid. I was always a little guy, real short guy. And I had another buddy, a friend of mine. He was kind of slow, mentally slow, but he was also real small. And he used to just get picked on, like constantly in school. But he had a big brother that used to beat the snot out of him constantly. And he was a scrapper. And this super popular big football player kid was harassing him and, picking on him in school. And there was going to be a fight after school. We're probably in like 7th grade. And I watched as Ed beat the snot out of this kid. It was like the most glorious thing I'd ever seen. To where like the kid's begging, please get off me. And just to see the mighty fall and the Lord give grace to that which is weak. And it's just a beautiful story. But here's the thing. So in our own lives, like for application, 1,000 times, like we've made it this far. How? Because we've trusted the Lord. For 1,000 times we panic. Oh no. Like, I was self-employed for most of my adult life. And when you're self-employed, so like, if you work for a paycheck, you budget, you get your check each week. You're afraid of getting fired or this type of thing. When you work, it's like you're a hunter. You go out, you make a kill, you eat. You got to go make a new kill, you eat. And so every week you're kind of stressed. Oh no, am I going to new jobs and this type of thing? And so many times throughout our marriage, like, oh no, are we going to make it this week or this month? Or, and just constant stress. And you think after like 40 successes that you'll have a little more, nope, I continue to be stressed every time. Like despite the track record that we all have in the Lord, like we've gotten this far, I still find myself panicking and being afraid. And trying to encourage myself, encourage myself in the way. And that's just not finances, it's this, again, health issues, kids, raising kids, like, oh no, every time they do something stupid, and just the fear that I allow to get a hold of me because I'm like, look at the size of that giant. Yeah. And I fix my eyes on the size of the giant as opposed to the faithfulness and the consistency, the track record of the Lord defending his own good name. And that's just something that, an important life skill is anxiety and even depression, learning how to deal with stressful, like something I'm trying to teach my teen kids in life is learn. And the same thing is just like a simple, basic Christian life skill is just learning how to trust God and not panic every time. Right. And I just love the spirit of David. Like I just say, Lord, give me that spirit that says like when something rises up and tries to talk trash and go, I'm gonna trash you and this and that, I'm gonna feed your body to the birds of the air. Go, how dare you, you filthy, uncircumcised Philistine. I'm gonna cut your head off and I'm gonna do it with a cocky spirit in the Lord. Do you know what I'm saying? Right. Like I just love that spirit of David, and that's something we can all lay hold of ourselves in our own lives. So kind of a weird exhortation, but I've never been here in all my trips. I've always wanted to. We've never stopped here. So just curiously, if that hill is Israel and this hill is the Philistines, is this particular hill part of this narrative, or is that just sort of?
Probably the Israelites on that side and the Philistines on the
Okay.
other side.
So it's just
And,
great.
and the river is between them.
Where's the brook that that's the
Right here,
where
that's
got
where we
the-
stop.
Okay.
Usually we stop there, but it's too hot. So we stop here, but now we go to the brook.
And let me just add something too, by the way. The most iconic story, the underdog, little David defeats the Goliath. Okay, that's the biblical narrative. Now, who's David? That's Israel, right? Within the whole propaganda today in the left wing, the Palestinians, who are the vanguard of hatred against the Jewish people, have stolen and tried to control the narrative to where they try to portray themselves as the underdog David with the slings against the big Israeli tanks. And everyone, like whoever can, in terms of a propaganda war, whoever controls the narrative wins, right? And the reality is the bottom line is it's Israel alone. You know, yes, they have some friends, increasingly less that they can rely on, but it's always been Israel against the world. And then the Palestinians come along and act like, no, it's the big bad Israelis. Now, yes, Israel's strong, but the narrative that it's there, you know, it's like, well, if you stop trying to kill us, maybe we won't have to, you know, engage with such difficult security measures, this sort of thing. But that's kind of it's a huge part of the whole story that's unfolding, is the way the Palestinians have hijacked that narrative and tried to make themselves the David against the Goliath. It's unrelated to what I was just sharing, but it's important.